magazines and stuff, there's so many different ways that magazines define a short story. And so is there one definition, or does that vary across platforms? Or
I mean, generally not. I think that magazines have their own reasons for defining short stories differently, because essentially it's a matter of word count and payment for featuring it in the magazines. And so some magazines might define a short story as under 2,000 words because of that payment aspect. Whereas you see usually the bigger magazines like the Clark's Worlds and the Analogs and, you know, the New Yorker or whatnot will allow you longer stories because they can actually afford to pay more. But I would say that anything more than 10,000 words, you would be starting to enter that like novelette territory. Essentially what you do is very different, right? So one of the main things that I talk about in the workshops is the differences between structuring your short story and structuring your novel. Because a novel, for example, you have a lot of time in the middle to build characters, to do character development, to do exposition, to do all of these things that allow you as a reader to relate to the protagonist. And then when the protagonist dies in the end, you feel betrayed and heartbroken because you can relate to a lot of their struggles. In a short story, you have to do all of that, but you have to do it in a very condensed form. In the start of my writing experience, let's say, I always had this perception that the longer the piece, the harder it was for me to write because I don't know what to write about, or there was all these like filler scenes. And then now I'm very much of the opinion that the shorter pieces, the harder it is to write, because you still have to convey the same surprise, the same emotion, the same, you know, love or hate for a character, but you have 5,000 words instead of 50,000 words to do it.
yeah, and I think, I mean, that is so difficult. I can't even imagine. Honestly, I think that's why I personally like really admire short story writers, because I think there is like some misconceptions that it is, you know, quote unquote easier, but like you said, you have to convey also like the backgrounds, and so you still have to have so much knowledge, right, I would assume, on the characters, even though we're not as the reader seeing that.